After a 6-year break, Stripe is back in crypto, now enabling stablecoin payments with USDC for customers in over 150 countries. Joining us now to discuss is John Egan. He's the head of crypto at Stripe. John, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, so that's right. Stripe had a 6-year break. Decided, crypto is a little volatile, a bit of a roller coaster. We're gonna, sit back on that ride for a bit. But now you're back. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, look, crypto's back at Stripe. We just released crypto payments, so pay with crypto, to almost all of our U.S. merchants 2 days ago, announced at Stripe Tour. And then back in April, John Collison sort of announced this to the world, that we were getting back into this space really deeply. And we get to add this to sort of our existing suite of crypto products that we already have today. So we already have a payouts product, which actually today we're announcing we're going to be integrating Stellar to, which is super exciting. We do fiat acquiring for crypto businesses, and we also have a crypto on-ramp.
What are the conditions that led Stripe to re-enter the crypto world?
Yeah, it's actually easier to talk about sort of the anti-conditions that pushed us out of it before. We tried to do pay with crypto back in 2014, and we were actually one of the first major payment providers to do so. But it just turned out that Bitcoin was not a great payment method. It's pretty slow. It's a volatile asset. You try to buy something. It's like trying to buy something with a Netflix stock. You don't really know if it's going to end up like being the price that you thought you were going to pay by the time it settles. And frankly, all of the infrastructure was pretty young at the time. So the wallets weren't really great. The error handling wasn't really great. But now we have these stable coins that are running on really fast, efficient, low-cost networks. And we're able to meet kind of the high bar of UX requirement that Stripe has for processing for our global merchant set.
Mm-hmm. I guess, John, my question is, as someone who's been in Bitcoin for quite a while, no one ever wanted to sell anything, right? Now we are starting to see, and especially with conferences like this, the idea of how do you get money in, how do you get money out. I know you guys have done a ton of partnerships about being on-ramps and off-ramps. So is this seen as a today business or really as a future business as more and more people are wanting to use digital currencies?
Yeah, what's kind of cool is it's much more almost a today business right now. So when we think about what, for example, Pay with Crypto is really enabling, right? This is iterative consumer access for existing global marketplaces more than it is just a pitch to existing crypto companies, right? If you're a crypto company, you can already take crypto payments. You're probably capable of this, right? But if you're like a major multinational marketplace, right, or one of like the largest merchants on top of Stripe, you really need this iterative access to the rest of the global market. We had this really exciting moment at Stellar where we sort of showed all the regions where we can accept credit cards today. And then we just lit up the entire planet, right? And said, or crypto, which works everywhere. So I think like this is already happening. Stablecoins are already getting adopted. We're seeing them really aggressively adopted in Africa and Latin America, certainly in Asia, right? And so it's not really us evangelizing crypto and then trying to say like, okay, everyone needs to start using it. Please go start using it. Use these coins, use these networks. It's much more an observation that this is already happening, right? We're seeing trillions of dollars move in this market. We're seeing hundreds of millions of wallet addresses. More than 50% of blockchain transactions are stablecoins now. So this is happening anyway. We're here to enable our merchant set and enable the global commerce that follows from that.
I just want to follow up with one, like a more macro question, right? PayPal's here, you guys are here. We know Shopify's been doing stuff. Like big tech is also pretty committed now, it seems like, in blockchain. What's the sentiment sort of shift that you've seen that has allowed these companies that I think were kind of standoffish for a while to jump in?
Yeah, I think there's actually a line being drawn a little bit between like what we traditionally talk about as crypto, right, which is maybe the NFT boom and maybe sort of like Bitcoin and the hype machines that are kind of behind it, and this much more practical kind of technology, right, that I think is almost better embodied by stablecoins. And so I think it's that technology shift that's helping these maybe more traditionally Web 2 companies finally see this opportunity to go and embrace the technology. I think Will Gabrick in one of his podcasts was saying recently, we figured it out. We figured out the killer use case for crypto, and it's just money, right? It's simple. We don't have to go and create something else. It doesn't have to be an NFT market. It can just be this core capability of rapid, easy global transactions. So look, everyone's seeing this all at once, right? Consumers are picking it up. Businesses are starting to transact in it. And so it makes perfect sense that we're seeing our peers do the same.
All right, let's talk about compliance and regulation. That's a hot topic issue. And we've seen SEC Chair Gary Gensler take on a bit of a regulation by enforcement strategy, according to a lot of crypto exchanges who are feeling the heat and the Wells notices, no doubt. Kamala Harris, our vice president and presidential candidate on the Democrat side, she may be mentioning the word crypto in a speech, in a talk coming up, and about the regulatory framework that she would hope to bring to the crypto industry. So I wonder, how is Stripe positioning itself to enter that narrative, and how you see or hope to see crypto regulation?
Right. So, look, our size means that we're operating in global regulatory environments, and we have to operate in the regulatory environment that we exist inside of. So, like, we welcome clarity, particularly from a regulatory standpoint. It's exciting to see things like MiCA happening here in the EU, and then the UK's equivalent of it. It's exciting to think that the US might bring some clarity to the regulatory environment. It's nice to see it on sort of both sides of the aisle, as opposed to being a divisive issue, especially over the last couple of months. But I think we're also seeing more regulated stablecoins come into being, right? Rather than just talking about like Tether being sort of the gorilla in the room, we're seeing this really rapid rise of USDC. Paxos has a coin, USDP, and we're seeing like more regulated chains as well. So these things are all good for Stripe. They're good for kind of global commerce in general. They're good for all US companies, especially if you're talking about our peers who are operating in this space. So I think just any clarity is sort of the desire here.
Any clarity.
Yeah, it's
just
nice to see all of this stuff moving forward. It's nice to see it getting a little bit, maybe more clear what the next 6 months look like, maybe what the next 2 years look like. And it would be really wonderful to be able to see what the next 5 to 10 do.
Yeah, just don't throw us the Wells notices. I wonder, are you finding one region more crypto-friendly than another? Say, versus Asia, MiCA with Europe and the US?
Yeah, again, I think it comes more to clarity than whether or not it's better. One location is better than another location. You can kind of see it in the order that we launch the products, where we find good confidence to be able to roll things out. Pay with Crypto is US merchants, but it's global consumers. That's reflective of some of the regulatory environment. We just started offering the on-ramp to EU consumers, and that's based on sort of Stripe's position as a consumer-serving entity in the EU, which is a regulated role. So, I don't think I'd say there's like one region that we have to go operate in. I think what we're seeing is kind of a global shift, mostly in the positive direction, to be clear.
Excellent.
John, my question for you, Stripe has some of the largest companies in the world and some of the smallest that are using the services. So when you think of who your client base, which I assume is just a pretty vast one around the globe, as you mentioned, who do you think is the most interested, but also who's going to be the most sort of benefited by the idea of adding in both Pay with Crypto and also, how people can utilize this payment rail system within Stripe?
So it varies pretty aggressively by product. So we have an on-ramp product, which is used pretty heavily by what I'd call more the startup segment. So especially crypto wallets, especially sort of like NFT providers. Our acquiring business, which is mostly for like taking credit cards as a crypto business, right? That's primarily targeting exchanges, which are a little bit larger, right? But maybe aren't sort of the largest customers operating inside of Stripe. And then when you look at like Pay with Crypto, like very much kind of angling towards the larger entities, right? The global entities looking to have wider consumer reach, who are already struggling with cross-border problems, right? So it's not that we're introducing this. These organizations are already operating cross-border. And this is like, we think of Pay with Crypto sort of like a global LPM, right? We have these like local payment methods that you adopt in every country that you go live in. Crypto is one that can work in sort of all the other countries that maybe don't have sort of an evolved LPM already operating, or maybe credit cards available as a payment choice. So it varies pretty wildly. Stripe's always kind of operated at like both ends of the spectrum. We cut our teeth on startups, and these days operate very closely towards enterprise. And the whole point of having kind of a suite of products here is we can serve this entire market.
Does the Pay with Crypto with Stripe allay concerns around KYC because you guys already have your KYC?
Yes.
Great answer.
That's the easiest answer to it.
Piggybacking off of that, I wonder, I'm hearing a lot about underserved communities that are being serviced, and addressed by Stellar. And there are a lot of partners and startups here that are particularly working with that. So how is Stripe helping those partners in going into those underserved communities and helping them with accessing the financial system?
So it's really cool if you look at some of the global marketplaces that are starting to adopt both payouts and pay-ins. You start to see this really interesting loop effect, right? Where if you're participating, especially in a global digital marketplace, where you can have folks from these kind of longer tail, much more commonly underserved countries that don't generally have access to the dollar, right? First accepting payouts in stable coins on these marketplaces for the things that they're selling, whether that's services or maybe creations, right? And then they're also returning back to the marketplace and purchasing using those same coins. So we have kind of immediate access to kind of commerce systems that weren't previously available. And then when we think about Stellar more directly on the payout side, there's this entire world of global humanitarian aid that I think Stellar is really helping to enable. You just had MoneyGram up here, which is enabling a lot of the off-ramps when that aid is distributed. And so integrating Stellar into our payouts product is in the interest of being able to help work more with global aid and humanitarian organizations.
Yeah. I wonder, are there any real world use cases you can kind of identify to get people past the jargon, understand, how this is impacting people?
Yeah, I can't talk about specific customers today, but excited to be able to release more case studies and talk more specifically about them as the product grows.
Then maybe if we're not going to talk about the customers, let's talk about the data, right? What are you seeing of how people are utilizing the network? Is it giving you any insights of how you want to continue to grow these products? Like, what's the thing that's sort of tingling your spidey senses?
So comparing sort of, like 2014 to today, we can see like a really stark comparison there, where in 2014, what we did in transaction volume while supporting Bitcoin as a payment method, we overcame that in a matter of days in starting to offer the new service over stablecoins. And that was just with a small number of initial alpha users. And then sort of going live to our wider group now, we're seeing that start to grow exponentially. So it's just, when we think about these things, we think about them in orders of magnitude, right? It's not really that exciting if this grows by like 1.5x or 2x, but we're actually seeing these trajectories start to grow more like 10x.
Do you have any announcements coming here to Stellar Meridian?
Really just incorporating Stellar as a chain into our existing products, specifically payouts in the short term, and then hopefully across our other products soon.
Another tech trend, that's been thrown out there a lot is artificial intelligence. I wonder if Stripe is working with that in any way, and how so?
I think there's been some really cool, philosophizing on where AI and crypto sort of meet. I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting opportunities there as the cost to transact continues to drop, and you start thinking about things like streaming payments and micro payments, just in general for AI. But look, Stripe has been operating in AI since 10 plus years. We use it for fraud. If you use our Radar product as a merchant, you're using AI in the background to make decisions. We use it for transaction completeness. We use it for risk assessments. It's already deeply embedded. It's kind of like talking to a Google or someone about AI. They've been doing AI forever, right? And so I think there's a new generation of it that's coming up that's going to give us more opportunities to offer those types of AI products kind of to consumers in a more obvious way. But from an infrastructure standpoint, it's already there, and we're only increasing our investment.
What got you interested in crypto?
Oh, boy. I've been in crypto in some way or another since 2011 or so. I was in Y Combinator back then.
Early.
When Coinbase was just starting.
Yeah.
I remember they used to limit the number of Bitcoins you could buy a day. It was like 1 Bitcoin a day, and you'd have to log in the morning and buy them before they ran out of the supply. So I got pretty excited about that space. I operated in the NFT space very briefly in the early days, working with sort of iPhone apps while Apple was sort of figuring out what they wanted their stance to be. And then to be frank, I actually came away from it for a couple of years, mostly as the NFT boom sort of continued, kind of waiting for utility to come back really at a core level. And really when stablecoins started to come on the scene, that was kind of my cue to come back. And that's when I joined Stripe about 18 months ago, and haven't looked back.
So you see stablecoins as the paving the way for the cryptosphere?
I think it's the most interesting sort of evolution of the technology towards core utility that we've seen. And we've seen a couple of really interesting moments like this, right? Sort of the DAO era, ICOs happened, we saw NFTs, and each time we sort of look at it, we're like, maybe this is going to be the thing that sort of enables the rest of the world to understand what we're doing here. And I think stablecoins have the best chance of actually accomplishing that goal, because it's to my point about it being the killer use case. It's the case that everyone understands. It's just purchasing things, right? And then receiving the dollar. Those two things are very simple, very powerful, and core to businesses like Stripe, but also to every merchant, every consumer in the world.
Bringing it back to core principles, electronic cash payment system.
That's right.
Alex, John, thank you so much for joining us. That was John Egan. He's the head of crypto at Stripe. Up next, we've got the top news headlines from our CoinDesk newsroom and a look at the markets with Chart of the Day.